Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 74 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Marsh, and I'm autistic. I have Asperger's syndrome, and I only found that out nearly 8 years ago now when I was 51. But I've always known I was different. Just earliest memories, I've always known I was different. Didn't fit in around family, friends, school, college, even worse, and at work. And I used to be a geologist in the construction industry, and I had interesting times getting on with people around me and dealing with people. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. People, my biggest challenge can sum up in one word: people. Man, they're confusing. I'm not the only autistic person that struggles with people. A lot of us do. A lot of people with Asperger's syndrome, like myself, really struggle being around and interacting with people for so many reasons. One of them is people don't say what they mean, and they don't mean what they say. And I know I've said that before in a previous episode of Talking Asperger's with Andrew, but it is so true. Just they just they don't speak clearly. The words they use are clear, but the meaning is not clear. So I use three words when I talk to people about briefing or instructing or guiding someone with Asperger's syndrome in a piece of work. Do three things: be clear, be specific, and be precise. If you can do those three things, then the autistic person, the person with Asperger's syndrome receiving that information, has got half a chance of getting done what you want them to do, rather than trying to interpret what you have said. You as the team leader, you as the manager, you as the leader has said to an autistic person. They will think, what do they mean? Do I take them literally as what they've said? Do I have to interpret what they've said? Because last time when we did something, it didn't go well. I got told off because I didn't give them what they wanted. I understand that. I was told I didn't give them what they wanted. But you didn't make it clear what you wanted. So if you're ambiguous, if you give ambiguous instructions to an autistic person, you're not going to get back what you want, what you perceived you were going to get, because you haven't been clear, specific, and precise. It is so, so important. I have Many times I have been tripped up by someone saying something. I go and do it, and they say, "Oh, that's not what I want." Well, clarify what you want. I, like I said, I used to be a geologist in the construction industry. One of my bosses was known for being difficult to work with and poor at giving out instructions. And whenever you questioned him on it, he would come out with the immortal phrase, "I don't care, just do it." What what possible hope have you got of doing something that they wanted when they just say, "I don't care, just do it"? What chance have you got? You've got none. You're in a hiding to nothing. A week later or 2 weeks later, when you've done that task, their boss is going to be on your neck, on your back, saying, "You haven't done what I asked for." Actually, he didn't make it clear, and he wouldn't listen to me when I came and asked him questions. He said, "I don't care, just do it." But you must have known what he wanted. No, I'm not a magician. I don't, I'm not a mind reader. I don't have a magic wand that can go, abracadabra, tell me what you want. Give me clarity. I don't have that ability. I'm just a poor autistic person who's trying to get on, and he's just been told, "I don't care, just do it." What chance have I got to do that task properly, correctly, how that person expected? None. Absolutely none. I might as well not bother, because whatever it is that I do, it won't be right. They might not necessarily know what they want until you give them something, and then they will confirm, "Oh, well, that's not what I wanted." Well, did you tell me what you wanted? Or did you just say, "Go and do something. There's a week's worth of work. Go and have it done and give it to me at 4 o'clock on Friday." Okay, I'll do something for 4 o'clock on Friday, but I can guarantee you it won't be what you want because you haven't told me what you want. And you only tell me that that's not what I want when I give it to you. So what's the point? Where's the where's the enjoyment? Where's the pleasure out of working for you, for doing that task for you, knowing that whatever it is that I have done is wrong, according to you, because you haven't been clear, specific, and precise. If you only take one thing from today's webinar, please take this. If you're giving instructions to anyone, they don't have to be neurotypical, they don't have to have Asperger's syndrome, they don't have to be autistic. If you are in the position of responsibility over team members, or you're a manager, or you're a leader, whatever you do when you convey instructions and you give tasks to other people, do those three things. Be clear, be specific, and be precise. And then you have got half a chance of getting back what you expected when they finished it, for the day or for the week or for the month or whatever the time period was that that activity was going to take. Can you imagine what it is like working for someone who you've got a task to do and you know it's going to take you 2 months? Your fees have been based on that. You know, they booked me in a whole 2 months working for this person to do this project. Do you know what it is like 2 months later, giving that finished thing that you have done, that you've spent 2 months on, to someone who says, that's not what I want? How demoralizing is that? Where's the pleasure in coming to work, knowing that you've got someone you're working for who doesn't care, isn't interested, and really just shouldn't be doing the job they're doing? There are far too many people that I have met in business, in construction, that shouldn't be doing the job they're doing. They're incompetent. And part of that is because they don't care. Part of that is because they're getting so much pressure from above or from other people. Part of that is because they don't know how to give clear, specific, and concise instructions. And part of that is they have been browbeaten down by the system. But none of that should excuse them giving you a task with an ambiguous instruction. They should be the stop point. All that goes on above them, all that's happened, I am going to make sure that my team has clarity in what they do, and I'm going to be the person who gives them clarity in what they do. So that when the bosses come back and say, how'd you get done with that? Yep, it's done. Yeah, it was done. Great. Did exactly what I wanted. Fine. Brilliant. Tick box, done. On you go. You get a good mark. The people that you gave the work to get a good mark. And they will then want to work for you again. When you don't have any choice of who you work for, and I've been in that position, it's tough. It's tough. So people, they don't say what they mean, and they don't mean what they say. And it's just so draining. So physically and emotionally draining, having to squeeze out of someone who has more experience than you, who is older than you, who's been in the business longer than you, trying to squeeze out of someone, what is it actually that you want? Tell me exactly what you want, and I'll go and do it. I'll do it to the best of my ability, and I will do it, and I'll give it back to you, and it'll be what you want. But don't give me a half-baked story of, well, just we did something similar last year. Go do what we did then. That's another one of my pet peeves. Go and do what we did last time. That might be a brilliant strategy, but there's something you need to find out first. Last year, when you did that previous job, did anyone ask whether it went well? Whether what you delivered to the end user worked well? Or did they have to make changes because it wasn't clear? It wasn't what they wanted. It didn't set out and meet all the objectives that they had for that task. So to say go and do what we did last year might be a brilliant strategy, but it also might be the worst thing you could possibly do, because someone else had to go and change it, make amendments to it, change the design, change the outcome, change the costs, because what you gave them didn't work. And if you haven't found that out, do not say, do what you did last month, last week, last year. If you haven't found out whether that worked or not, don't say that. Set out clear, specific, and precise objectives. Write them down. Write them down before you brief that person. Have a checklist before you brief that person. Understand exactly what it is that you want so that you can convey that with clarity to the person or people or the team members that you are asking to do that piece of work. Don't just assume they know how to do it. They might, but they might do it their way. And I've worked with people who are, it's my way or the highway. So do it how I want it, not how you want to do it. Do it how I want you to do it, which is difficult. Trying to do a project the way someone else wants to do it is difficult because we inherently have our own way, our own unique ways of doing things, of presenting things, of summarizing things, of looking into something. If you gave two people an identical task, you will get two different responses. They might both say the same thing. These are the 3 points that we've got to deal with. These are the costs. This is how long it's going to take. They might both say that, but they'll say them in a different way because one is specific to person A and one is specific to person B. But having to write and do another piece of work exactly how your boss would do it, your leader would do it, is incredibly difficult, particularly if you have a number of different people that you could be working for at any given time, and they all have their own different style and way of doing something. I've been in that position, had 4 principal engineers working above me, and at any given time, I could be working for any of them. In fact, I could be working for 2 or 3 of them because I'd be working for one project for one person, another project for another person. How easy is it, do you think it is for me to work in that environment, working in a different way for a different person and doing what they want? It's incredibly difficult because you have your own way of doing something. Just like doing a maths calculation, there's more than one way to do a maths calculation. Or preparing a spreadsheet of information. There's more than one way of preparing a spreadsheet to put information in. Provided it displays and portrays the information that you want in a manner that is legible and intelligible by someone else, does it matter that you use red highlighter for high priority issues and a grey highlighter for lower priority issues? Providing you've said in your key, your legend, red high priority, grey low priority, does it matter that the next person might have them the other way round or might use blue and green instead of red and grey? Does it matter? No, it doesn't. Providing you inform people what the key is, what the legend is, people will understand it. But having different people that you're working for is incredibly difficult because they each have their own style, they have their each own way of doing it, they each have their different standard. When I had 4 principal engineers I was working for, they had different standards. One of them, very high standard, clear and precise. He wanted it in a certain way. One of them, pretty high standard, but was a bit liked more rambling, conversational reports. One of them didn't care. He was the one that said, "I don't care, just do it," by the way, but he didn't care. And another one had a different way of doing it as well. So when you've got four people that you could be working for at any given time, it's very difficult. And you could be sitting there watching this going, oh, yes, but if you're unsure, ask questions. Good strategy. But when they don't want to answer them and they're not interested and they're too busy doing their work to be bothered about what you're doing, I've told you what I want you to do. Go on and do it. I don't care. Just do it. Get on with it. Okay, if you say so, on your head be it. So I've labored this point. I have labored this point, and I know I've labored this point, but it is absolutely essential when working with anyone When you're giving instructions, you're giving a piece of work to do, you're giving a task to do, even if it's, I'd like you to write an email to my boss about such and such. Sure. What do you want me to cover? What topics do you want me to cover? Do you want a short email? Do you want a long email? Is it going to have 3 points, 4 points, 5 points? Is it going to have summaries? How do you want it done? Go through it with me. Sit down. Take the time to go through it with me and tell me what you want. And I'll go and do it. People, strange creatures. So saying what they mean and meaning what they say are two different things. But always be clear, specific, and precise in any instructions you give to anyone. And if those people happen to be neurodivergent, autistic, or have Asperger's, it is really, really important that you take the time to work out what it is you want and you convey that clear, specific, precise way. Let's go on to other things about people. The unwritten rules of social communication. You know that manual you got when you were 12 that said, this is how to behave around people? Yeah, I didn't get that manual because that manual doesn't exist. But most of you, with time, with learning, with experience, with age, will grasp most of those social conventions of unwritten rules of communication. I have Asperger's. I don't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I have learned through bitter experience of being beaten and battered and bullied that there are certain things that happen in certain circumstances, but we don't understand those unwritten rules of social communication. I have got to learn that someone sitting like that, when you're having a conversation with them, isn't impressed with what you're doing. They don't like what you're saying. I've learned that one, but I didn't know it before. I had to learn that. I've had to learn that someone tapping on the desk is they're irritable. They want you to finish. They want you to stop. They've got a meeting to go to. They've got something else to do. They don't want you to be there because they, come on, look at the time, look at the time, look at the time, look at how much time's going on. I've got something to do. Go away and do what you're supposed to do. Leave me be. I'm busy. To learn that one. So when I'm asked to go to meet people, I like to know a few things about who are they? What are they? What is this group of people? What are their objectives? What is their, are they a collective group of people that have a certain agenda? I'll give you a very example that you would know. Am I going to a women's institute group? Now you would have an idea. You may not know specifically, but you would have an idea if you went to a women's institute meeting, some of the things that you would expect to happen there, or you would find there, or the people would be talking about there. You would have a perception. You may be right, you may be wrong, but you'll have some understanding of going to a WI meeting, this is going to happen. Going to a political rally, this is going to happen. Going to meet people, who are these people? What are they doing? What's their agenda? And that's one of my big things when going to meet people, whether it's people I know or people I don't. And that's what their agenda. And you might think, what do you mean? I don't know, because of 59 years of lived experience of getting it wrong, of being bullied and abused and beaten and battered and treated very poorly by a lot of people who claim to love you, I don't know what your agenda is. And if I don't know the person, I have no idea what their agenda is. Are they going to make me feel comfortable? Are they going to make me feel welcome? Am I going to just have to stand there and wait for someone to come up and go, hi, Andrew, how are you? Or am I going to have 10 people coming up to me, Andrew, how are you? Shake your hand. How are you doing? Pat you on the back. Come and talk to us about such and such. Or am I going to be left in this room of 50 people going, what do I do? I'm like a rabbit in headlights. What do I do? How do I, how do I, how do I go and introduce myself to those people? They're having a conversation. And I was brought up not to interrupt and not to pester people. If you interrupt someone, it's rude. Andrew, you're being rude. Don't do it. Be polite. So when I'm at networking meetings, of which I had one last week, it's a great struggle for me because if you're networking with 40 people, generally they're having 20 different conversations because it's usually two people, sometimes three. Can you imagine the noise and the intensity of that incessant conversation where you can't pick up any conversation because there's this wall of noise? And people who are autistic or who have Asperger's, we can be very sensitive to noise. It can be one of our triggers that can make us very uncomfortable, even lead to a meltdown. So being in a room, 40 or 50 people having 20 or 25 conversations is a major challenge for an autistic person, for someone with Asperger's. And I did it last week. There was about 30, 40 people in this room that we were networking. And after a while, it just got too much. And I had to go and just glide my way out the door, around the corner, find a chair to sit on that was away from the hullabaloo of what was going on, and just decompress. Too much noise, too many people, too many things going on. Got to get away. Just allow myself to calm down, decompress from that noise, and then go back in. So it's incredibly difficult for us to be around people in those circumstances because we don't know your agenda. A lot of the time we've gone to those situations, we've been with friends or been with family or been with work colleagues, and we haven't been made to feel welcome because we're different, because we act differently, because we can be socially awkward. We stick out where that's awkward Andrew from that department downstairs. Oh, he's a strange one, he is. Get him talking about things that he really likes and he'll go on for hours. But trying to extract some information out of him about other things, it's like pulling teeth. Very difficult because we don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. We're stuck. It's almost like we're put in a room full of people and none of us speak the same language. Think about that for a moment. Imagine if you were in a room of 40 people and none of them spoke English. How would you get on? How would you make yourself known? How would you make yourself understood? How would you even introduce yourself to them when they don't speak English? Very difficult. Now try and consider a room full of people who do speak English, but we still have that blockage. We still have that. How do we get on with these people? How do we introduce ourselves to these people? How do we tell them about what we do, who we are, what we do, what we like, what we don't like, what's the nature of our business? How do we do that when these people are already having conversations? And I've always been brought up that it's rude to interrupt people. And it is. But you go to a networking meeting and bam, bam, there people are doing it all the time. Hi, how you doing? Big, bold people coming boom, straight at you. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a double glazing salesman, or I'm a mortgage broker, or I've got a roofing company, or whatever it is. I'm an accountant. I'm a lawyer. They come boldly, boom, straight up, bam, in your face. And that's something that people getting too close to my personal space is back the bus up a wee bit. Yes, just give me a little bit more space. I know you're there. I know you want to have a conversation with me because you've made that known and we've learnt that skill as well. But just back the bus up a little bit. Give me some space. I need this little bubble, this protective bubble that I have around me that I try and make sure that people don't get into because I need to be safe. I need to just have that distance, that comfort factor, that, ooh, don't get too close. We can have a conversation, but don't get too close. Very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable for me. When I get uncomfortable, I can get I can get irritable and I can get ratty and I can get And that's not what you want to do when you're at a networking meeting. You want to be open, you want to be friendly, you want to be engaging for other people. You want to see if that person that you're talking to might be interested in what you do as a business. And they're obviously trying to find out whether you're interested in what they do as a business. So there's a mutual, let's find out a bit about each other, and then we'll move on and go on to the next person. Or if there is some, oh, that person's interested, you might then move a little bit closer, but not too close. But you'll then ask open questions. Tell me more about what you do. Who do you work for? Where do you work? Where's your client base? What do you do? Tell me a bit more about how you do what you do. That's when someone is starting to be interested in what you're doing. And I've learned that from experience. Didn't know it beforehand. Didn't know it. Didn't know these social cues. These little things that come naturally, just gracefully, like the swan gracefully swimming across the lake. We're the undercarriage of the swan. We're going at 9 million miles an hour and not looking graceful. And other people just glide through life, glide through situations easily, carefree, relaxed, nonchalantly. Autistic people struggle a great deal being around people because we don't know your agenda. And we have learned through that bitter experience of being badly treated, being bullied, and so on, that by going into this room full of all these people, I might not be comfortable. I might not be made to feel welcome. I've got my defensive shield up, my little bubble. And it's going to take me a bit of time to find people in this room that I want to converse with, I want to talk to, I want to find out more about. I want them to find out more about me, what I do, what my business is, how do I help businesses with Asperger syndrome at the workplace. But to do that, we need to start having a conversation before we get into the nitty gritty. And yet some people come boom, straight in, bam. I'm Dave, I'm a mortgage broker. I just sold 6 mortgages last month. Things are great. Good for you, Dave. Not too heavy, Dave. Just, tone it down a little bit. I'm pleased for you that things are going well. Don't get me wrong. But just tone it down a little bit. I need to be gently coerced into this conversation. And then I will start to open up. I will start to be more engaging. Oh, excuse me. So these are some of the things that autistic people, people with Asperger's syndrome, and other people with agoraphobia, who don't like open spaces, they don't like people. It's not that they don't like people. It's not that I don't like people. It's that I'm wary of people. I've learned through those bitter years of experience that some people aren't nice to me for whatever reason. Maybe they just don't like me. Maybe I rubbed them up the wrong way. Maybe it's the first time they met them and they get the wrong vibe, the wrong energy from me. I don't know. But there are some people that I meet for the first time that I struggle to get on with. We've all walked into a room, even those of us who are bad at recognizing these social cues. We've all walked into a room and gone, "Ooh, there's an atmosphere." I'm sure you've done that. And you've maybe sat with it and gone, yeah, it's over in that corner. It's those people over there. So you try and avoid them. Or you might go, do you know what? This is too much at the moment, and walk out and come back in a little later on. These things about people are some of my biggest challenges. In fact, my biggest challenge is people. 6-letter word that is the biggest challenge for me as an autistic person with Asperger's syndrome. My biggest challenge is people. People. 2 P's, 2 E's, an O and an L. Can you imagine such a simple word as people? And yet it can be the most difficult thing to overcome, to meet, get on with, converse with, understand, communicate with people. So difficult. Particularly, excuse me again, my apologies. particularly if some of the people who are above you are difficult to get on with, who are bullish, big, bold, brash, boom. They're very difficult for me to get on with because they're too intense. I need people to come down a notch, why turn down the volume of intensity of what it is you're saying, what it is you're doing. That will help me understand and listen and speak and communicate with you. But people who come in waving reports and go, Slam, I want that done by the end of the week. Well, good for you, mate. Good for you. Who's going to do it? Because if you're going to talk to me like that, I'm not. So often I've wanted to say that. But that would be the end. That would be insubordination. You get written up. You get dragged in front of directors and HR. But the number of times I've had people, I want this done by the end of the week. Well, good for you. Who are you going to have to do it? I'm being flippant here, but that's the first attitude, first response that we have sometimes, and we have to bite our tongue and try and be a little more diplomatic, which we are struggle with. Being diplomatic is one of the things I struggle with, because if someone asks me a question, I'll give you an answer. Again, coming back to 59 years of learnt experience of living with people, I've got a little better at being diplomatic sometimes. Sometimes I still get it wrong. I still get it wrong. Spectacularly wrong. And I don't do it on purpose, but just sometimes it just happens. People will say the wrong thing and it gets my back up, and boom, out it comes. There's the response that what you weren't expecting. Boom, there's the conflict. And if that person is in authority over you, they're your manager, your leader, your team leader, your supervisor, you've got a problem. Because you either try and deal with it, or you have to manage it, or if you really can't, you have to go above their head to someone else. That's when it gets problematical. But why didn't you speak to Dave about it? You had the argument with Dave. Speak to him about it. He's unapproachable. He doesn't listen. I've tried to have a conversation with him, but he just brushes me off, says he's too busy, not interested. I can't have a communication with him. I can't have a conversation with him because he's not prepared to listen, not prepared to engage with me. So I'm coming to you. That person speaks to Dave. Oh, I got on with him fine. Yeah, because you're in authority over him, so he has to listen to what you're saying. You're not listening. You're not getting the point. These things are so difficult for us to deal with, being around people and the vagaries of how people will behave and how people's attitudes are to you, to what you're doing, to how you're doing something. Major problem for us, for me, is people. So if you are a leader, if you are a manager, if you are a supervisor of anyone, doesn't matter whether they're neurodivergent, have autism or Asperger's, I am asking you this. When you're giving instructions, be clear, be specific, be precise. Do it in writing. Have a checklist. Take the time to sit down around a table with them. Have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, maybe get a biscuits or something like that to make the discussion welcoming, rather than just slapping something down on someone. Says, I want that done by the end of the day. Good for you, mate. I'm busy. Engage with the people that you want to do the work for you. Ask them. Tell them what you want, but ask them. I could really do with this being done. Could you help me out with this, please? You're going to get a better response than just someone slapping something on down on your desk. I want that done by the end of the day. Well, actually, I'm working for someone else today. So you need to go and clear it with that other person. And then someone needs to come and tell me what my priority is. Because I'm not making the decision. I've got work to do. I've got work that I'm programmed to do, that I'm scheduled to do, and I'm working for that person. So if you want me to do something different, you need to get authority from someone above, or the pair of you can. Oh yeah, my stuff can wait for a couple of days. Do that for Dave. That's fine. But don't put me in the position where I have to make a choice between something I was already doing and something that you just slapped down on my desk and said, have that done by the end of the day. That's not how to communicate with people, anyone. Find the way to engage with all of your team members in the way that works best for them. And that might be different for different team members. It's your job to find that out, because in doing that, you're building the right rapport with your team members. You're understanding them and how they work, how they operate, how they prefer to do things. And if you can talk that language with them, you're more likely to get them to do what you want to do. And by having that rapport, things will go better. Rather than just be a one memo man, send out a memo to all your team members, have it done by the end of the week, and just let them get on with it. You've got to be more specific. You've got to tailor what you tell people to how they receive the information and how they understand the information and how they work with that information. So as a leader, your job is not to stand there with a clipboard and a stopwatch. Your job is to find the way to support every member of your team in the way that makes them most efficient, productive as they can be. That might mean that you need to manage your two people who are autistic in a different way than you manage the other 5 members of your team. Yes, I've just said you might need to change your style and how you manage different members of your team according to their needs, their personal traits, how they do things. That's what I've just said. A good leader will find the way to support each member of their team so that they can work at their effective best, most productive best in your team. And if that means you need to vary how you instruct, manage each member of that team, then that's what you have to do. I'm going to say 2 further things before I wrap up for today. And I say this quite often on my webinars. We are in the 3rd decade of the 21st century. If you think the 1980s was just a few years ago, I've got news for you. The 1980s started just over 42 years ago. The 1990s started just over 32 years ago. The practices that we used to do in business of the 80s and the 90s are probably now all obsolete. Let's be leaders and not clock watching managers. So I'm going to leave that with you and ask you, as my final thought for the day, if you're giving instructions to anyone, particularly if they're autistic or have Asperger syndrome, be clear, be specific, be precise. Then you've got half a chance of getting back what you want them to do. So if you want to know more about managing Asperger's in the workplace, please feel free to get in touch. My name's Andrew Marsh, and you can get me at my website, which is just over my shoulder there at aspergersmatters.com. There's a contact form on there you can use, or you can email me at andrew@aspergersmatters.com. I have a 7-steps program that I work with employers to help them better manage people with Asperger's in the workplace. See how I can help you. If you would like a conversation to see whether I'm a good fit for you, whether we could work together, I'd love to have a free 30-minute consultation with no obligation, just to see how you do what you do and whether there's anything that I can do with what I do and how I manage and how I put strategies and techniques together to help people manage people with Asperger's in the workplace better. I'll be delighted to have that conversation. So please keep a lookout on LinkedIn on Friday for what next week's topic will be about. Until then, take care, look after yourselves, and manage people like you would like to be managed yourselves, with care, with dignity, with compassion, and you will get the best out of your teams. Take care. See you next week.